My name is Erin and I am a clinical and forensic psychologist. I spent about the first 2 decades of my career working in Correctional Service of Canada, mostly maximum security prisons, as a psychologist and then a chief psychologist. And then just more recently, in the last year and a half or so, I've been trying my hand at private practice and working in a clinic where I focus mostly on people who have attention and focus issues, so a lot of diagnoses of ADHD. Before I met Maria, I had done a lot of therapy. I had a really difficult, a lot of stress, and really came to a point where I was unsure whether I was going to be able to work doing the work that I do as a therapist. So it was a really difficult time for me. I was pretty nervous and just not knowing what it was going to be like. I still had a lot of doubts and insecurities, which, I think we all do all the time, regardless of how much work we do. I think for me, I've never done hypnotherapy. I had no experience at all with Reiki and didn't know a lot about it, and was pretty skeptical of it. A friend of mine had sent me an article that talked about the fact that the U.S. Veterans Association had kind of approved the use of Reiki, I believe, because they were getting some good success. And because of my background in psychology, we get a lot of stuff drilled into us about evidence-based practice, and it seemed a little bit hokey to me. But having met Maria, I felt actually that regardless of whether it did nothing or was a little hokey, I had enough trust in Maria that I felt comfortable participating. And so I always felt completely safe, and I always felt that this was someone I could trust. And then doing the first hypnotherapy session in particular, that's what I think made a big difference for me, because the thing that people don't realize about when hypnotherapy is done correctly is like you're conscious the whole time. So you're in a state where, like, I can remember exactly the stuff that you said to me, and I know that there wasn't anything kind of fishy or sketchy going on, that it was all very much like kind of just solid grounding me in truth about what I know about myself, and having faith in my, in all the work that I've done and the work that I'm continuing to do, and just sort of believing positive. But it's funny because I think with respect to me, I often don't believe the best about myself. And there was something about, I think, the messages that Maria kept repeating over and over again, which was like, believe in yourself, ground yourself in what you know to be true, ground yourself in understanding that you can do this, whatever it is that's put in front of you, you're going to figure it out. And it just made a big difference in terms of my mindset with respect to myself. And so what I found in the last several months, since I started meeting with Maria regularly over the course of our time together, was that it provided me with this. I think I had a pretty solid foundation. What this did was provided me with like a big layer of cushion on top of that, from which I could then kind of step up and reach onto the next rung of the ladder. Made a lot of changes, significant changes in my life, because of a bunch of decisions I made that I think I was able to make because of the work that we did together. I went from like a 4.5 to like a 7, 8, definitely an 8. And I'm not as bound by fear as I was before. We always waiting for the other shoe to drop, knowing that it's just a matter of time before something goes horribly wrong. That kind of feeling of anxiety that sits in my core. And I felt like I was really able to let go of that. And I think that is very much tied to the fact that Maria and I did this work, and I felt that sort of ongoing love that was just being repeated over and over. And it's like somebody was just pouring love into me, and pouring a lot of positive reflections, speaking truth into my life. And because it was kind of coming in a subconscious level where we're not in a conversation, so I can't kind of like, argue back or, say, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, yeah, sure, that's true, or make a joke. I just had to absorb it because of the way that hypnotherapy works. And it made a big difference in my life. And I think, yeah, I'm so much healthier because of it. I think that changes everybody's life. And it certainly has changed mine. The more you have relationships, when you have a trusting relationship with someone like Maria, um, it makes you want to have closer relationships with other people. And I believe that the whole concept of Christianity is being in an intimate relationship with Christ and God. And so one of the things that hypnotherapy does, and Reiki as well, is that you're in a really intimate relationship with someone, and it needs to be someone that you trust. Having the confidence to walk away from a really, well-paid, and more importantly than well-paid, good benefits, good pension, and walking away from that it takes a lot of faith. You then have the capacity to kind of understand, like, you know what, it's going to be okay. It might not be the best financial decision, short term or long term, or, in any sort of, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that we are spiritual beings, we are physical beings, and there's also our mental health. And all of those things must be taken into consideration, because a healthy bank account doesn't make a difference when you're taking all of that money and you're using it to buy things to fill the hole, because you're so bereft in other areas, right? When you are so low mentally, and you're so low spiritually, and you're so low in terms of your self-concept, you got to buy a lot of stuff to fill that hole. And that'll take all the money and all the benefits. I am actually doing totally okay financially because private practice turns out pays really well. But even if I wasn't, I don't feel the same need to fill those holes. But I also think that the hypnotherapy in particular did something for me that nothing else has done. You could have looked at my, Google Fit or whatever it is, and you would see that I was walking maybe a couple thousand steps a day. That was it. I was also driving 2 hours a day to and from work. And so I wasn't super healthy, and just making those healthy decisions. I think the only reason I'm doing that consistently now is because of the relationship that I have with Maria. So physically, I'm doing much better. Spiritually, I'm able to continue to grow. I'd taken up the bass guitar last summer, and I was doing a thing at church where I was in a worship team. And then I just was feeling really crummy, early September. And then just about a month ago, I emailed the worship leader guy and said, I want to start up again. Because what I realized is there's something for me spiritually about music. And it seems to touch a part of me that nothing else does. But again, making that decision to put yourself out there, I don't know what I'm doing, playing the guitar, playing the bass. But I feel like that's okay, because nobody's judging me, and if they are, then they can have at it. So if you're skeptical, give it a shot. Trust the process. If you think for some reason that it's not something safe, or it's not in line with your values, then absolutely don't do it. For me, I certainly was skeptical, not of the hypnotherapy so much. And certainly once I tried the hypnotherapy, I'm all in, because I think it's so incredibly helpful. And it's nice to have something positive in there instead of kind of a negative, fear-based voice that's always whispering in the back of my head. Gather the evidence and prove to yourself that it's stupid and not worth your time, and see what happens. And I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised.